Hi, I'm Paul Thede. Welcome to Race Tech. I get questions all the time about some of my inventions, and one in particular is an emulator. The idea is, how do you take a damping rod fork, which this is a damping rod, which is really simple as far as how it works. What happens is when the fork compresses, oil actually gets shoved through these holes, and that's what creates damping. The faster it shoves through the holes, the more resistance there is to damping, and that's all there is. The problem with orphan-style damping is that it actually increases in resistance with the square of the velocity. Now, not one to be too fancy or technical about that, but basically what happens is it means that on low speed hits, the suspension, the damping actually has fairly little resistance to flow, and then on high speed hits it actually ramps up really quickly. And so this is actually a velocity squared curve. So every time I double that velocity, I'm getting 4 times the amount of force. And so the characteristics of this type of damping is it has a tendency to be mushy, and at the same time it has a tendency to be harsh when you hit square edge bumps. The question is, how the heck do we make this really simple device, which is a damping rod, how do we make it work like a more sophisticated cartridge? The way that we do it, and this is back in early 90s, 92, somewhere around there, and some of the guys that were new Race Tech centers, they were calling me up and going, man, isn't there anything we can do with damping rods? And I thought about it for a while, and actually thought about it for a long while. And what we've come up with is, if we take this, instead of relying on the compression damping being created here, if what we do is we cap the damping rod with a valve, then we can actually create damping up here instead of down here. And so in order to transfer the control of the damping up here, we simply need to take these holes and drill them out. And so they get larger, so they're still creating damping, but really not much. And so what we do is we turn control of the damping over here to the emulator itself. Now, an emulator stands for a Gold Valve Cartridge Emulator. And so what it does is it emulates or duplicates the compression damping curve of a well-tuned cartridge fork. The damping rod is always completely immersed in oil. So oil level is always above this. So as soon as oil starts flowing through here, it comes up through the center of the damping rod and it goes through the valving in the emulator itself. So there's never a time where there's not fluid flowing through the emulator. Now, what we do is the emulator actually has a bleed hole here, so that on very low speed hits, it still has that velocity squared type damping. There's actually a piston right here that gets pushed off of the seat, and it works against that spring right there. So now I've got some tuning variables that I didn't have before. I can change the stiffness of that spring. I can also change the preload on that spring, and I can then take that damping curve and move it all over the place. So pretty simple device. Now, interesting, as far as the development of this is concerned, people ask me all the time, well, why don't you use bending shims and et cetera, et cetera. I tried all kinds of different things. People look at this device and go, gee, that's pretty simple, Paul. And I take that as a compliment, because it actually took me about 6 months to make it that simple. So what has actually happened is we now have a tunable valve that creates a very sophisticated damping curve, and I can move that damping curve all around to wherever I want it to, and we're no longer really controlled by old-fashioned orphan-style damping. There are a lot of forks out there with damping rods. Not only the vintage bikes, but your cruisers, most Harleys, every brand, Japanese bikes, etc. There are a lot of damping rods that are out there, and it's a relatively inexpensive way to manufacture a fork. So that's a little bit of an overview about emulators. They're actually a pretty simple device and really effective. One of the things that I want to just impress upon you guys is that everything that we do, we guarantee. And this is one of those things that it's a really an easy product to guarantee, because people are just really happy with it, and we're standing behind it as well. So anyway, that's a little bit of an overview about emulators. So thanks for watching.